everybody. Welcome back to On Texas Football. Welcome to the Wednesday night live stream here at On Texas Football. I am Jeff Howe, joined by the normal Wednesday crew. He is, as Rod Babers has dubbed him, the young prodigy of On Texas Football, CJ Vogel, and lifetime Longhorn 2005 national champion, and apparently boxing enthusiast now, Marcus Myers, joining us. Marcus, how's boxing club going? You guys trying to make that a thing?
Yeah, man, we're doing good. You know, y'all see I survived. Stevie didn't beat me up. So, you know, for all of the commentary to that regard, we're just doing some training, man. It's been pretty good. Ricky Brown even joined us today. So we got us a little group going, and you know, I am recognizing my age and my football injuries catching up to me, Jeff. I had to go to the chiropractor earlier today because, you know, all the twisting and rotating, I haven't had to move in that manner in a while. So all in all, it's good though, man. Everything's good.
Good. Had to get you right. Shout out to a couple shout outs, actually. First of all, shout out to Bryant Westbrook for joining us last night on the Tuesday night live stream. Marcus, thanks for setting that up. And shout out to Rod Babers for filling in for CJ. For CJ, this is one of the most random things I don't think I've ever heard of a Tuesday wedding, but you were in and out of Nashville yesterday for a random Tuesday wedding. How does that work?
Yeah, it was about a 24-hour trip to Nashville. It was about 20 minutes north of Nashville. So got to check out a little bit of Vanderbilt. Got to check out the Titans' new stadium just on the drive up. That thing looks like it's going to be pretty impressive. But yeah, Tuesday weddings. It was fun. Now I feel like I just skipped a day in the work week and closer to the weekend.
Sandman trying to put your business out there, CJ. You weren't officiating this wedding, were you?
I was not. And it was not a shotgun wedding either.
They
are deeply in love, Jeff.
Sandman.
Good deal. All right. Well, let's get down to it. Gentlemen, we're going to thank a few of our sponsors here, our fine sponsors here at OnTexasFootball.com. We'll thank them throughout the show. But thankfully, after yesterday, in the kind of worst case scenario, the doom and gloom, wondering what was going to happen with Trevor Gooseby, we know he's avoided, and Texas has avoided the worst case scenario. Going to be out for a little bit. We don't know exactly how long, but Texas will get him back at some point. Quiet day today because there was no practice today, guys. The team was off today. They'll be back at it tomorrow, Friday, and then scrimmage number 2 coming up on Saturday. But CJ, I don't think you've been on the channel at all since this broke. So first off, give me your reaction. I don't know if you were getting texts in the air or you just landed and turned your phone on and everything just broke loose. Like, give me your reaction to the news that Trevor Gooseby, bone bruise in the left knee, going to miss some time, but not the worst case scenario that I think a lot of people, myself included, feared could have been the case.
Oh, man. What a sigh of relief, first and foremost. I'm not a morning person by any means, right? So when I was returning texts at 6:15 in the morning, people knew that something was going on and that things were needed to be figured out, right? So that to me was almost outside of Arch, right? I think that's the biggest jump scare you could get. 6:30 news break of one of your star players going down with a non-contact injury. And look, the way it's been described to me, Texas is fortunate that leg isn't, immobilized for 6 months, right? So I don't know the timeline right now, but the fact that he is not done for the year is a big win for Texas. That's a multi-loss injury for me. Like, that is a piece of your puzzle. As talented as he is and as irreplaceable as we've all deemed him to be here at OTF, if Trevor Gooseby doesn't play the entire season, that's 2 losses added to the schedule for me. But man, that was a scare. And credit to his camp, credit to Texas for keeping it under wraps as long as they could. But that, initial report of a bone bruise, I think, again, everybody collectively just said, oh, crisis not totally avoided. But man, it could have been significantly worse.
Yeah. If you're going to win a national championship, you've got to have injury luck on your side. Like, I think of the 2008 Texas team, Marcus, and we look at, hey, there was a lot of things that caused that loss in Lubbock that kept that team from playing for a national championship. But if you look at that game, like Quan Cosby got dinged up, Brian Arakpo got dinged up. Like, there were several guys that ended up getting hurt. And Hey, you think back to 2005, there were probably some stuff along the way, and I think Georgia Shipley, maybe the injury in the preseason. Marcus 05 was a pretty fairly healthy year. Thankfully, though, they're going to get him back. Where do you come out, though, Marcus, on what CJ said? That if Texas had lost Trevor Goosby for the year, it would have been a multi-loss.
So okay, I'm gonna try to not go on too far of a soapbox here, but I would say I slightly would push back on CJ there, and here's why. I am generally a person that is pretty slow to judgment. I try not to live in absolutes. And especially when we get into kind of hypothetical land, which is what we're talking about here. And fortunately, to this point, it doesn't look like we're going to have to see what that looks like playing out. But I don't know, man. I have this thing about me that sometimes is willing to let things play out and see if teams, in fact, have figured some things out. And so, granted, I know, we've kind of heard some reports about, Kojo and Jonte Newman being ones taking some reps at left tackle. We've also seen some stuff out there about people saying that, Goosby's only going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks and that kind of thing. And so as such, it probably, leads one to think that this certainly would be something he should be able to come back from relatively quickly. All that being said, I'm still not convinced that necessarily, it would play out exactly the way CJ said. And part of that is because whether I should or shouldn't, I don't know. But, again, as we're kind of prognosticating and trying to project what we think is going to happen in the season, I'm actually a bit higher on the O-line depth than probably most are. And a big part of that, I know when we were even talking back in the spring, was I felt pretty good about if Kojo could be healthy, him actually having a much larger role than most people were willing to talk about. I know we've had conversations on the channel about it, but nationally and even, in other local spots, I really didn't hear much conversation about him. And I think a lot of people forget how close he was to not only pushing, but maybe potentially overtaking Brandon Baker at right tackle when he got hurt a couple years back. And so now that, he's kind of fully healthy, I think there might have been a couple of other solutions that they could have, found there. And I'm also, of the belief that some of these young cats are kind of ready to bite. And so, I think it's one of those things where it's tough when you look at it because we're certainly in our Longhorn bubble. I know our fan base is as well, but I also don't know too many programs across the country, especially in this NIL era, that have a ton of depth per se at the offensive line, positions, and certainly not much that's proven. So a lot of it is, where does it all land with you? So I certainly could see it being at least a loss. I don't know, for me, if I would have seen it as multiple.
Here's my one reservation, CJ, on Andre Kojo. If Kojo ends up being the guy, why it has nothing to do with his talent, why I haven't considered him as an option. Big guys coming off of a knee injury, it typically takes them, if it's taking a guy like Derek Williams, well over a year to get back, I just have a hard time believing Andre Kojo is going to be there. Now, he may heal differently. It may be different. That's what's got me paused about Andre Kojo's ability to help this football team is I just don't know where he is recovering from the knee injury right now.
Yeah, he should be there, right? He should be back to full health. But again, that's 340 pounds. That's having to require, pass sets. And so, Jeff, I hold that same reservation. I think it's great that he's back. I think it's great that he's pushing, right? First team reps on practice on Tuesday. But still, there's something about, a knee with these offensive linemen that are moving at this size so consistently against the speed that they'll face over a 12-game season that Texas has to endure. I think that's worth a little pause there. My question is, because we also heard about Jordan Coleman getting some reps there. Where's he, right? Could he be a solution, right? Because he was a guy in the spring that we heard a lot about, said Kyle Flood loves him. Yeah. So Jordan Coleman, Andre Kojo, I think Jonte Newman is a little bit away. I think Texas likes him. But you do have more options this year to field an injury or just horrific play than where you were at a year ago.
And Jeff, I think your point's completely fair. I think the only thing I would add to that is just in my commentary was more around this kind of more shorter term, right? Because my thought would be if it was longer term, you likely kick Siani to left tackle and I would feel a little bit better about a Kojo or someone else at right tackle, right? I think that's kind of where my mind was on the offensive line.
Yeah, I where I'm aligned with you, Marcus, is like, and CJ, I just keep thinking back to last year where it was almost like, okay, like what's the best bad option you've got? Like, okay, you should throw Nick Brooks into the Florida game when he's never played guard before and roll the dice and see how it works. But you think about right now, like you've got Trevor Gooseby on the mend, you got Lawrence Seymour dealing with whatever he's dealing with. The Sark called it an injury hiccup. It was some kind of, I just heard in scrimmage one when they pulled him out, he was limping in some way, shape, or form. I don't want to speculate on what the injury was, but it didn't sound like it was necessarily heat related. It was some kind of injury, and Sark's called it an injury hiccup. The bottom line is you got the left side of your offensive line that's out right now. At least yesterday, they weren't there. And like you've got options. Like you've got legit options, like guys that have actually played. Like I know Kojo hasn't had that many snaps, but he's at least been in a game. Dylan Sikorsky started games at Oregon State. And if you needed another guy like Cole Hudson, if you needed to move Siani over to left tackle and you wanted to kick Brandon Baker back out to right tackle, which I'm not for that, but if that was something they wanted to look at, Cole Hudson was a 13-game starter at right guard as a true freshman. So like to your point, Marcus and CJ, this is where I'm aligned with Marcus in terms of I feel better about this offensive line just because you do have options. Like it's not just you're going to throw somebody out there and pray and hope for the best. Like these guys at least have some track record of doing something. To your point about Jordan Coleman, I don't know. That's always risky when you throw a redshirt freshman out there, but at least you got the benefit, and Kyle Flood and Sark have this. At least you watched him take most of the first team reps in the spring while Trevor Gooseby was out recovering from shoulder surgery. So at least you got that.
I don't like the injury. Not a fan of that. I don't know if I'm breaking any news there, but I do look at, when Arch was sidelined in the spring, how valuable were those reps for KJ Lacey?
Yeah.
Right. To build the trust with the staff, to know what he's good at, to know where areas of improvement need to come. I mean, you don't get to go against a Will Muschamp-led Texas defense in live situations very often. I look at that the same way right now. And of course, I would hate it if Trevor Gooseby missed games, missed extended time. And I know the 2 to 3 week recovery is out there, but again, I'm not ready to say that, right? Bone bruises are very, complex,
Agreed.
right? They're very unique to whoever sustains them. So 2 to 3 weeks is out there. Look, I think that would put him right in line to come back for Ohio State. I wouldn't be shocked if his first game is Tennessee or even after the bye week. Right. I just think that that's how these things go, especially with a guy that size and that needs that knee that badly. But I look at it for a Coleman. I look at it for a Kojo. You might get a full game at left tackle that otherwise you probably would have to go 8 or 9, 10 weeks before you accumulated that entire level of a full game's snap count to get an idea of what they can and cannot do. So again, I hate that Trevor went down, but if I'm finding some sort of silver lining here, Jeff, it's that depth is, again, at least getting that first team look and potentially a game where otherwise you would not have had it.
Yeah, I do like the fact that the schedule sets up the way it does, where if you needed to, you could hold Trevor Gooseby out those first 4 games and then the bye week and then let him come back for the OU game. So he's back for your, hopefully at that point, 100% full go, ready for your last 8 regular season games against that SEC schedule. And you got some big time opponents in there, starting with Oklahoma and Red River. We'll keep talking about Trevor Gooseby. Whatever you guys want to talk about in the chat, go ahead and get your questions lined up, super chats. As always, jump to the front of the line here on our live streams. Right now, we need to thank one of our sponsors and give a shout out to Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise, one of our long-running sponsors here at On Texas Football. Are you stuck in the corporate rat race with 2 weeks of PTO and no control over the money you can make or your schedule in general? If that describes you, then call Andy Ludicky. He'll take you through a process to help you find a business that'll fit your skill sets and your financial goals. Franchise ownership is something that's not for everyone, but if you have a desire to take control of your destiny, call Andy or email him at andy@myperfectfranchise.net. Again, that's andy@myperfectfranchise.net. And we want to thank Andy Ludicky and My Perfect Franchise for sponsoring the Wednesday night live stream here at On Texas Football. All right. Thank you, CJ, for handling that. Stephen Houston has a question. Said, this is going to be Andre Kojo's audition for 2027. Honestly, if he shows well, you have him in line to start. If not, you go back to the portal and hope Siani comes back for 27 to play left tackle. CJ, this is my thing with the offensive line. It's hard for me to look beyond this season because with the portal window, you just don't know. I don't know if you can plan for more than this season. You can, but I don't know what good it's going to do you.
Well, you planning for next season is why you went out and got John Turntine from North Crowley, right? That is why you won a big 5-star level recruitment for a left tackle. And so far, everything that we've heard behind the scenes for Turntine is that at some point in his career, he will certainly contribute and be a factor on this offensive line. Is it next year? That might be, wishful thinking for what would be a redshirt freshman in year 2 to take over at left tackle. But that's why you go get guys just like that. So, look, I don't think Ishmael Kamara will be ready to play year 1, but again, similar, right? That's why you go get a guy with that level of tools or that athleticism he could be an option. I think Jonte Newman is why Texas went out and added him from the portal, not for this year, but because they like the tools coming out of Bridgeland, because they like the tools that he possessed as a recruit and said, hey, I know that you ended up at A&M, but if you're going to hit the portal, we got a spot for you right now because we see something in you. So I don't know about going straight out to the portal. Texas needed it this year, given, hey, your best option was coming off of an ACL, right? That's leaving it to chance. Next year, again, we've talked about it. They have plenty of options. Let's see how they progress for another 4 or 5 months before the portal opens, and then they'll need to address it again.
Yeah, and again, your in-house guys, at least you have an idea of what it would take to retain them if Melvin Siani did want to come back. At least for a high-end tackle, maybe you can retain him and then build your line out from there. You'll be replacing some other pieces. But Marcus, Pete Golding, I think, was the first SEC coach I heard talk about this. He talked about it at SEC Media Days because he was asked about the run games and why some of these programs last year, Oklahoma, Texas, just go Alabama, teams just had not had historically bad years running the football. And it's one of those things you kind of know it, but when Pete Golding said it, it kind of crystallized for me. In the NIL era, with the way rosters are constructed, with the money you've got and the value placed on some of those premium positions, it may be harder than ever to build a quality offensive line, even let alone a great offensive line. And it's really, really hard to have depth because if you're at a place like Texas and you're developing guys, well, they're going to go to fill in the blank school, maybe go to a Big 12 or an ACC school where they can go walk in and start in theory.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping, though, Marcus, when you look at some of the movement, like we just mentioned Jonte Newman, going from A&M to Texas and Nick Brooks going from Texas to Alabama, I would think, Marcus, at some point guys might realize, you know what, I'm transferring to be a backup at one place, to be a backup at another place.
Yep.
Just stay there and ride it out and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think the challenge, Jeff, is we're still kind of in the wild, wild west where, a lot of these guys, and I know we talked about this a lot during portal season, right? A lot of these guys are being enticed into the portal with promises of certain dollar figures. And whether or not they're fully met, for some of these kids that's very intriguing. And then it's almost like another re-recruitment process of sorts where it's if this guy is telling me they're going to pay me X amount more than, Texas is willing to pay me or insert, whatever school here, well, maybe I might go take that chance. And then when you get there, you may end up in the exact same, situation that you were in before, as you just mentioned, Jeff. And so I think it's one of those deals where, maybe with another year or two of, that proving itself out a little bit more and guys kind of seeing that. And then with 5 for 5 now being in play, maybe that's something that entices a handful of guys maybe to stay a little bit more than they are currently. But right now, it's still one of those situations where the dollars plus the promise of, the potential of starting is sometimes more enticing to folks. And so I'll be interested, as we start kind of taking a look at, where a lot of the guys landed and how they're performing, how that ends up, shaking out throughout the course of the season. But I absolutely agree. And I was, it's funny, Sandman and I were kind of going back and forth in the chat this morning about this. And oddly enough, this was one of the more genuine and normal conversations that I've been able to see Sandman have. So I thought it was pretty dope. But we were just kind of talking about how there really isn't a ton of depth, and how you look at, losing a Trevor Gooseby and you can't afford to lose him. Well, go to insert whatever school here and find me a player on their, All-American list that they could afford to lose, right? Ole Miss can't afford to lose Kwan Lacey. For whatever they paid Jordan Seaton, I promise you Lane Kiffin can't afford to lose him, and so on and so forth. And then, I think the last thing I would even end it with is, generally speaking, we have this concept of what, a number of, what a number of schools, have the ability to do, right? Largely because of what we've seen them do over the years. That being said, I'd be willing to bet the overwhelming majority of Texas fans couldn't tell you, one, who Oregon's starting left tackle is, let alone who the guy that would replace him would be, and whether or not, he's proven, right? We don't find out these things until they're actually put into the positions to be able to do it. So it's certainly an interesting kind of case study, over time, how we see this will play itself out. But I'm with you. I think NIL has really kind of gutted the ability, to stack, these elite guys. And we've even seen it with some of the guys they pursued before, where it was like, hey, I would love to come to Texas and I can go to Oklahoma and start as a freshman. So no, you're not going to get that other 5-star to come sit behind another 5-star.
CJ, I think this conversation, though, brings it back to something you mentioned at the top in your initial reactions with Gooseby. We can talk about Jordan Coleman. We can talk about Kojo. Kind of to Marcus's point, like, if you lose a guy like Trevor Gooseby, like, you don't replace him. Like, we can talk about next man up and all the rah-rah stuff, and that's great, but you don't like a guy that could be a legitimate, like, top 10, top 15 type pick in the draft at left tackle. You don't replace that. You don't have that just sitting around. And I know everybody say, well, yeah, Gooseby filled in for Kelvin Banks. Yeah, but he's the exception, not the rule, that you've got a redshirt freshman, future first-round pick kind of waiting in the wings that you recruited and evaled and developed. Like, you don't count on replacing that guy.
Right. And going to that, Jeff, it's not like, look, Gooseby played great stepping in against A&M, against Clemson when he was asked to do so, right? You weren't getting Kelvin Banks. You were getting a young Trevor Gooseby. And again, there were promises. I think we all watched that and say, hey, 2025, he's probably in for a really, really solid season, right? That next year, we're excited for him. But you weren't getting it at the time. Now, again, could you get glimpses of superb football? I think so. But you're also going to get the learning curve, right? Playing left tackle in the SEC is not easy, right? And so to have a Banks and then transfer into a Gooseby, Texas got very fortunate, right? They recruited well, they developed well. Both of those guys turned out exactly, probably higher than what expectations were coming in, especially in the terms of Gooseby. So how do they do that with the next guy up? It's going to be another process. It's another learning curve for whoever it is. And that's something that they won't know until basically, like Marcus says, they're out there playing someone in a different color jersey, right?
And we didn't know we didn't even know what we had in Gooseby till he got in, right? Yeah. So, I mean, it's all, just a matter of when they actually get their opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cotton SEC said, we knew O-line depth was never something we had. However, other schools have folks step up. We need to demand the same. I mean, you can, and that sounds good on paper, but, like, it sounds good in theory to say it out loud. But, like, to Marcus, we just got done talking about this. I think it's kind of hard to see the forest through the trees sometimes. I don't think every school in the country just has O-line depth just waiting to step in. Like, a lot of schools are in the position Texas was in last year, where if you didn't either develop it or you didn't hit the portal for it, man, you're an injury away from being in a world of hurt. Thankfully, Texas isn't in that position where you've got options, but man, I think Texas is actually in a much better spot than some other schools are right now that are dealing with O-line injuries.
Man, I'm telling you, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole and just, stick on this point. I'm sure there's other stuff that, folks want to talk about, but I agree with you, Jeff. Like, one, I'm sure this is absolutely, this is what our fan base wants. That's what I want as a former player. We would all like that. Certainly we demand that. What makes us any different than any other fan base? Do you think Oklahoma has just a plug and play replacement for their center right now? No. And we're talking about he may not be back until at least Texas OU, right? Yeah. So, like, there's situations like that across the board. And I think we are so enamored with us, which is completely understandable. But if you look around at some of these other fan bases as well, I guarantee you if they had an O-line injury to whoever their best offensive lineman player is, the overwhelming majority of them, including whoever you would deem as the elites, are going to begin to panic and not know fully what they have behind them. That's just the nature of what this current iteration of college football is.
Yeah. If I can add on that, Jake Mikula is who you're referencing, the center at Oklahoma. Knee injury right now. I heard sprained MCL. I heard that whatever ligament damage is there. They're still, of course, trying to figure out what the true diagnosis and timeline is for a full recovery there. But Marcus, to your point, Noah Best, true freshman out of Midlothian, is a guy that they've had circled saying, look, I don't know if we have anyone better than him right now, and that's a true freshman, in which if you go back to what OU's issues were a year ago on the offensive line, it was youth, it was inexperience, it was guys being thrust into play who had never played before, and then obviously being baptized by fire in the SEC. So that's where they're at right now, having to deal with their own offensive line injuries. Texas, to the point that we've made over the last 25 minutes, a bit more fortunate when it comes to experience, veteran-led guys in that room who have at least known the system and seen some time at the college level before.
Yeah, we can keep talking about the offensive line, or we can go in another direction. As a matter of fact, I want to go in another direction here in just a second, but you guys control the show. Chat, get it lined up. Super Chats jump to the front of the line right now. I need to thank actually our lead sponsor for the Wednesday night live stream. That is Prize Picks. Y'all know we're always looking for ways to make watching games a little more fun. That's why we love Prize Picks. It is America's #1 sports picks app, and it's about as simple as it gets. Trust me, for player picks, all you got to do is choose more or less on a few player stats, lock in your lineup, and you're good to go. If you like picking teams instead of individual players, Prize Picks has you covered there too, because now you can pick the winner, the spread, or the total on games or fights. But yeah, Prize Picks is available in most states, including Texas, California, and Florida. So wherever you are, chances are you can jump in today and play. And one of the best features on Prize Picks is you can follow users. If you like the pick somebody's making, follow them with one click. You can follow your friends' picks too. However you want to do it, Prize Picks has it there for you. Now, here's the best part about Prize Picks right now. If you've never tried Prize Picks, play your first $5 lineup, and if you win, you'll get $150 in bonus lineups. Just make sure you use the code HMA when you sign up. They just updated this offer, so there has never been a better time to get started with Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app, use the code HMA, play that first $5 lineup, and if you win, you'll get $150 in bonus lineups. Don't forget the code HMA when you download the Prize Picks app. And as always, please remember, play smart, play responsibly, play Prize Picks. All right, thank you. CJ, we've got a super chat coming in. Jonah Williams enthusiast with the super chat said Ian Jafar going to eat that true freshman center like Jerry be eating them corn dogs. That is something fierce, and that's quite the thing. Hey, I'll say this, CJ. I think you had a note of this, and I don't know, man. Sometimes there are just some players at Texas where, for whatever reason, like I just want it to happen for them, like almost in an irrational way, like I just really want that guy to maximize. Murad Watson's becoming that guy for me on this team. And I know, CJ, you had something over on TexasFootball.com. I can't remember if it was yesterday or today, but he's had a run, like including scrimmage one, he's had a run of practices where he's starting to show what he can do when healthy. And I only mention him with this mention to Ian Jafrard because he's versatile enough to where he can be your backup nose behind Jafrard, but you can also play him next to Alex January or Hiro Kanu, like a guy that can play multiple shades, that can be on the field as a 3-down player. He can do a lot for you. I'm really pumped about the idea of Murad Watson.
Yeah, I think there's a couple guys that we've talked about throughout the spring who are in for, highly competitive years, guys that are going to contribute and play a lot of snaps, but probably don't get the recognition because of other people in that room, right? Masunas is one, Justin Cryer. I think Emmett Mosley gets lost in the shuffle, but Murad Watson certainly on that defensive line, because when you look at the room, you look at Justice Terry, the potential, you look at Ian Jafrard with the size, you look at Hiro Kanu with the leadership, and then lost in that room is Murad Watson. Right. And he played a lot of snaps a year ago for the Longhorns, almost 320 snaps or something in the range of that. He's in for, I would say, a similar role for the Longhorns this year. Now, again, I think that for that entire room, the play should be elevated because you're going to rotate more. You won't have to be strained by fatigue or the length of games as a result of having a lot of depth in that room. But if you're able to generate the pass rush, and that's really where I look at Murad Watson and say he and Justice Terry, the two guys at Texas, need to have big interior pass rushing years to maximize this defense, because he was a guy at Syracuse his freshman year where he received All-American honors because of what he was able to do in getting pressure from the interior. If that comes back this year, along with a Jaffard, along with a January and a Kanu and a Terry and everything else that goes into that front seven, Texas would be in a fantastic shape. But it starts with Murad Watson, who's continued to have really strong practices stacked on one another.
321 snaps for Murad Watson last year for whatever it's worth. Do you have something there, Marcus?
No. I was in agreement with CJ there, man. Like they legitimately have a strong rotation of 6 defensive tackles that have the ability to kind of play at some different shades along there. And I'm really excited to see Murad Watson. I think I've told this before. I ran into his dad at the Georgia game, and he was just telling me how he was out there doing the best he could, but he was banged up, and he's finally gotten healthy. And I think, aside from the Gooseby scare, for the most part, continue to knock on wood, they've had some really good, luck in guys coming back from some nagging injuries that maybe weren't as publicized during the season that we came to find out about after the fact. And if they can continue that and those guys are able to go out there and perform, I mean, you look at that as a true strength of your team.
All right, we got another super chat coming in. Brandon Morgan coming through with the super chat. And Brandon, thank you so much for the super chat.
Wow, here we go.
Appreciated. Brandon says OTF is number one. Rod on air said I want you to think what you call me. Brandon, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time keeping up with the question, but he said, when do you think Gooseby comes back full time? And Marcus, want to know what your thought is as well. 2 to 3 weeks is kind of the general time frame, CJ, but I don't know. I feel like we're still maybe a little bit early in this. I can tell you this: we're scheduled to meet with Sark on a Zoom after the scrimmage on Saturday. If that happens, I'm almost going to guarantee he'll address Gooseby or be asked about it, one or the other. Mm-hmm. I think, CJ, right now I'm just kind of living in that roughly 2 to 3 week time frame.
Yeah, I think so too. Brandon, I might just steal a page out of the Texas nicknames with the Marvion Overshow. Man. Demo? How about BMO? I'm going right there. I mean, sticking in line with Texas royalty, Texas legends. So thank you again. I got a neighbor apparently thinking now's the best time for some home improvement. So excuse me there, but no, Brandon, thank you again. Jeff, to your point, absolutely, we'll hear something about Gooseby. And again, will we get a true answer? Is Sark going to unveil all of his chips or his cards for Ohio State to know what Texas is going to do at left tackle? Probably not. He's mentioned a few times, if I don't have to disclose injury information, I will not. So we'll see.
Brandon, you put me on the spot with a nickname. Let me think about it. Marcus, what are your thoughts on the Gooseby situation or time frame for him to come back?
Yeah, Brandon, I'm not good with the nicknames either, and you didn't ask me to, so I'm a defer on that one to whenever Jeff is able to come up with one. I think CJ's is pretty good though. That's pretty good on the fly there, CJ. But to the question too, Jeff, I'm the same, right? Like I would love 2 to 3 weeks to be, the right time frame. I'm also, one that, I mean, again, I guess, my allegiances are pretty strong having played. And so I just want the young man to be fully healthy and be able to play to the highest of his ability, even beyond this season. And I imagine, that's also something that's being taken into account. And I've also seen enough of these situations. I've had, different forms of bone bruises myself. I've had teammates that have had them. And I've seen guys come back in 5 days. I've seen it take some guys take 2 months and everywhere in between. So I think, everybody is projecting and hoping for the best. I suspect that the staff and Trevor and his family are going to also be doing what's best for Trevor and making sure that he doesn't take the field again until he's 100%. And so whatever that looks like and however that ends up impacting, the Longhorn season, I certainly hope for the best and hope that it's not a situation that, it ends up resulting in any kind of losses. But I'll be honest, I'm much more concerned about his health than I am, how it ultimately impacts the win-loss column.
Is it uncouth if I call Brandon Captain Morgan?
I'm cool with it.
I like that.
Okay. Well, Brandon, you might just be Captain Morgan for me from now on. But whatever it is, whatever I come up with, definitely appreciate the contributions and the super chat. I got a super chat from Justin Yarbrough. Justin, thank you for the super chat. Said I read somewhere Wardell Mack has moved to full-time corner. Is there any truth to that? And Marcus, with your experience, how are the guys feeling in camp condition-wise? Great stuff, fellas. Justin, thank you. CJ, I just know they've been running a lot of guys through that star position. Like Xavier Filsame's been there. Bo Masco's continued to work there. There was one of the media windows we were at, like Derek Williams and Jordan Johnson-Rebel were getting some run there. So I think at this point, I don't know if he's moved to full-time corner as much as they're just trying to figure out, like kind of like Kyle Flood with the O-line, Will Muschamp and Blake Gideon and Mark Orfe trying to figure out in the secondary, hey, who's our best like 7 or 8, and we can make some kind of configuration if somebody gets injured or whatever to make sure you've got your best 5 on the field at all times.
Yeah, they're cycling through a lot. Wardell Mack has seen time at the outside corner. I don't know right now if that is 100% where he'll be seeing exclusive snaps moving forward. But again, we've talked about Warren Roberson seeing time at safety. We've talked about Filsaime moving down. Texas, Muschamp, Gideon, Orfe, they're all working cohesively to do exactly what you said, Jeff, and that's find the best 5, find the right formula for the back end of the Texas defense. And, Texas has a lot of guys who have played a lot of college football back there. I say that as, fourth-year guys, right? Warren Roberson, Wardell Mack, Derek Williams is in that conversation, Jelani McDonald. So figuring out where those pieces best fit the puzzle is what they're doing right now. And again, you can do this going into another scrimmage to make sure that, hey, we're not taking crazy pills with this idea. They get to see it on the field immediately and then watch it in the film room to see if things actually make sense before doing this in a game this fall.
Marcus, is a little bit different because when you were at Texas, 2-a-days, like legit 2-a-days, were still a thing. Sir. But go back to that place. Where is everybody at probably physically at this point between scrimmage 1 and scrimmage 2?
Man, you took the words out of my mouth, Jeff. I was actually talking to former OU quarterback Eric Moore about this morning, Washington commit Trey Moore's dad. And man, they better feel great. Like we 2-a-days. Like for all of the recovery, I mean, they have I invested in a cold plunge for my house for just myself. They have a one the size of a pool, right? Yeah. That these guys get to go get in. It's not like going to dunk yourself in ice after practice anymore. And they got STEM and chiropractor on site, massages, all the different things. They have every recovery tool at their disposal. And from all accounts, their, summer conditioning was excellent. I've heard a lot of the guys talk about it in media availabilities. I've seen them, where Rod's done some different spots with the guys on 3rd and Longhorn. And when they talk about conditioning, they all feel like they're, really well prepared for the season because of what Teray Becton and his staff put them through this summer. So to me, I mean, yeah, maybe there's some little bumps and bruises a bit because you're coming off of the first scrimmage of the year, if you will. But I mean, even they had today off. Like they have so much at their disposal to be able to bounce back. I imagine they're still feeling pretty fresh. They probably are starting to kind of get a bit annoyed that they're having to just go up against one another and you can't get anywhere near the quarterbacks and that kind of thing. But that's more of like a mental, overall kind of emotional disposition kind of thing than it is true conditioning. So I think they're still doing just fine in that regard.
This isn't related to conditioning, but CJ, what did you make of, Bobby reported this over on TexasFootball.com last week. You go back to camp last year. Sark didn't make the guys, live on campus during camp. He switched that up this year and guys are staying in the dorms. You think that, and look, maybe it's just a deal where, hey, didn't like the way last year started. Let's just do everything the opposite of what we did last year, or just got to go back to what worked before. Is that neither here nor there for you, CJ? What do you make of the players moving back on campus, at least for camp?
Yeah, well, it makes me wonder if Sark rewatched like Remember the Titans or something this offseason. He's like, hey, this is actually a good idea. But I
Yeah.
like it. I mean, the more that you're around these guys, and what used to be when, even when I was in school about 8 or 9 years ago, guys lived on campus, right? You would leave practice and you'd go to a house or kind of a neighborhood, and there'd be 4 houses with guys, 5 guys per house, right? They would all live in the same vicinity to go hang out, to watch games together, to play Xbox together, whatever. Now guys live downtown, right? Now guys live up in East Austin. They live in Mueller. They live, some have houses elsewhere that, they just commute in because, NIL affords them that opportunity to not have to live on university housing or whatever it is. So I think it's phenomenal for these guys to spend more time with one another. I'll say this as well. The defensive line is currently at an escape room as part of their Wednesday or Culture Wednesday. So again, just building that bond. Marcus, you could speak to that as well as anybody. Just being with your boys is phenomenal. And it helps so much when you find adversity somewhere throughout the season, or week 9, 10, and 11 come around, you're just kind of tired, right? So I think it's great, Jeff.
Yeah, you said it perfectly, CJ. And I stayed in Jester East, right? So it wasn't like we had the greatest of conditions, but it was convenient as hell when you're having to, move back and forth, between these, 2-a-days, or even, towards the end of camp when they cut it down. I mean, it was really easy to just be able to walk everywhere you needed to get. And so even if it's just cutting down on the possibility of, some other person that's out there on the road driving like an idiot and you get in an accident or whatever it is, like, I love it for the guys for all the reasons that CJ mentioned. It helps you to build the camaraderie. You're all going through a version of the same struggle. Granted, I imagine they're not in Jester East anymore. They're probably in a nicer dorm, but it's still one of those deals where, like, it's one of those things though, where, like, those are the times that you really remember. Like, you'll have stories that come out of that and things that, happen that only y'all will know about, that help you kind of come together and coalesce around whatever your mission is for that season. And so I think it's a great idea. I imagine there's, some other places that do it, and you hear, about NFL, teams doing it all the time. I think they do it, for a reason, and certainly hope that it pays off.
Absolutely. All right, we'll get back to it here in just a second. Got to thank another one of our sponsors here on the Wednesday night live stream, and give a shout out to Laura Baker, one of our long-running sponsors here at On Texas Football. This edition of On Texas Football is brought to you by accomplished Austin realtor Laura Baker. Laura and the Andy Allen team at Keller Williams can handle all your real estate needs in the Austin area. Laura's not only a diehard Longhorn fan, but a longtime Austin real estate expert. So whatever your real estate needs are in the greater Austin area, give her a shout at 512-784-0505. Again, that's 512-784-0505. And we want to thank Laura Baker for sponsoring the Wednesday night live stream here at On Texas Football. All right, got another super chat. It is Captain Morgan coming through with the super chat. Said, I second that. So, all right, Brandon, from now on, whenever you send in a super chat, you're Captain Morgan. Somebody said that means that when Brandon does a super chat, I've got to wear a pirate hat. I have no problem with that. The only problem is I do not own a pirate hat. So I guess I'll be on the look, guys, for a pirate hat.
Just get the
Somebody's
iPad.
just got to gift you one. Somebody got to gift you one, right? Like, they got to send you one, Jeff.
Worst case scenario. See, I was going to say this, but I think I'd have a better luck actually finding a pirate hat. I was like, I could find like the closest Long John Silvers and like give me one of them paper pirate hats that you get with the kids meal. But I don't know, Marcus, how close I live to a Long John Silvers anymore. I have no idea where the closest one is at this point.
Touche. Yeah, I don't know where Long John Silver's is anymore either, but that was one of my spots back in the day, man. It don't get me started on old food places either, because I saw people talking about Players on X the other day.
Yeah.
CJ, this was before your time, but I'm sure you heard of it. And one of the best burgers I've ever had in my life. If somebody could bring that back to the drag, that would make my day.
Has it been that long, Marcus, that Players has been gone?
I think it's been gone since like 2014, Jeff.
Man,
so CJ was probably like 5 or something. I don't know. How old were you, CJ?
I was in high school.
Okay.
I don't think it was that long ago. But now, you know what I didn't know, Marcus, this was a news flash for me. I saw on one of the I think it was one of my social media times, like it might have been Facebook. Columbia House apparently is shutting down, and I'm like, well, there's a newsflash. I didn't know Columbia House was still operating.
Me either. I had no clue.
And Marcus, I know you took advantage of it at some point. You got the 12 CDs for a penny.
Absolutely.
Right? 100%.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. No doubt.
CJ's probably wondering what the heck a CD is, but we'll save that for later.
Lamb?
Not quite, but we'll educate you later. Brandon, Captain Morgan coming through with another super chat said, I want a Viking hat. All right. So there it is. I gotta find a Viking hat, a Viking helmet, not a Minnesota Viking, but a Viking helmet for whenever Brandon comes through with the super chat. So Brandon,
built-in beard, Jeff. Got to get the built-in beard on it.
Okay. Like what about I'll Brandon, I will do my best. I don't have another live stream scheduled for this week, so I can take a few days and see if I can go find a nice Viking helmet to accommodate your super chat. So it is much appreciated. No, that was news to me, Marcus. I didn't know Columbia House was still open, so but it's going away. Paxton 941. Yes, I know you have asked this question many, many times. We have not talked about the NFL players coming back to college. And we have not talked about it for two reasons. One, I don't think this is going to impact Texas in any way, shape, or form. What are you now? 17 days away as of today, 16 tomorrow from the opener. Don't think it's going to matter. And two, I'll be quite honest, guys, and CJ, Marcus, I don't know where y'all stand. I'm tired of TROs and various court orders, and I'm ready. I'm past talking season. It is not talking season. It is football. Please get here in a hurry season. Like that's where I am right now.
I hate it. Marcus, go ahead, because I hate it.
Okay. I'm not a fan, man, especially this late in the game. You got, what is the guy that is looking at going back to LSU? Like he just played in the Bucks preseason game.
Had 2 sacks.
Had 2 sacks, and you're suing to potentially come back because maybe you're on the cusp of getting cut. Like, what are we doing at this point, man? And so, I'm not really interested, and I really don't think there'd be, even if Texas was interested, I'm not sure if there's really many people that would even be useful, at this point, other than just having another body, right? Like you wouldn't want to put them in a situation necessarily where that these other guys have been getting all the reps and there's not really a way they're going to contribute. So, I just don't really see a person that would make any sense for Texas, nor do I care for it. Maybe I'm not as passionate on it, but I don't care about it. I try not to pay attention to it, and I wish it wasn't a thing.
I hate it so much. I also say this too. Look, every single player who's attempting to do this, one, probably not making an NFL roster or has already been told they're not making an NFL roster. If I look at this Texas defense, this Texas offense right now, how many positions would greatly improve with a guy with no NFL future? It's not that Texas is turning it down. I'm just thinking, hey, Texas has had 8 months worth of guys that they've worked with who have all been recruited very highly, that have all been developed to the best of their extent. If they were to come in now, what benefit would they provide to the Texas football team in general? I would say probably zero.
If let's say it's an edge rusher, right? Say, okay, could you put like a guy that's, to use the old baseball term, like a 4A player, like you're better than most AAA players, you're not quite as good as the major leaguers. A guy of that caliber, would you want to pair him with Colin Simmons? Maybe, but if you're Alan Clark and Will Muschamp, you've already invested all this time into Lance Jackson and Zeno Moselo and Smith the Robo and Richie Wesley. Like, why are you just going to bring in somebody basically like an NFL team with a street free agent when you got all this time, money, quite frankly, resources invested in the guys? And CJ, like, I don't know what some of these guys are going to want, but I would imagine the very last thing that Sark and or Brandon Harris want to do 16 days before the opener is be negotiating NIL with anybody.
Right.
And the only option that these guys have also, I think the other thing at play here is to go back to their original school. right? Like unless you were in the situation like Jordan Pope and you snuck into the portal, during the offseason kind of thing, way, months and months ago, just on chance that a suit could go back in. It's not like we can go pull somebody that was at another school to come to Texas. So really the only viable person you're talking about here is Ethan Burke, I guess. And by all accounts, he's doing pretty well. He's trying to make the 53, right? And he's probably in line to do it. So again, I don't think there's really somebody you could point and love him and not at all trying to critique him. But like, are you bringing Jalen Gilbo back to play special teams? And then to your point, Jeff, your dollars are already allocated. So what are you paying them? Like, it's just not. It just doesn't make sense for Texas. There's a couple of spots where maybe it has. We've seen it with some of the Indiana guys, maybe where that kind of makes sense. I don't really see how it shakes out to be a plus for Texas.
You'd have to approach it kind of like, from all accounts, like the mentality Cole Hudson is like, hey, I may come back. I was a starter last year. I may not have a starting job, but you know what? Like, hey, it's another year where I can pursue my postgraduate degree and play another year of football with your buddies. Like, it takes a different mindset. And I'm with you, Marcus. Maybe if it's guys going back to their original school, that's kind of the only way you do it. Because I would have there were I did talk to somebody at a power conference school who's overseeing some of these things for their school, and they said there were a few guys, not many. There were a few guys who had the foresight to put their name in the portal just in case something happened. But you're talking about a very, very, very small percentage of guys that even were planning on something like that possibly happening. So yeah, I don't, man. And like, I know some people mentioned Ethan Burke. Marcus, like, Ethan Burke's trying to make the Baltimore Ravens right now. He's not thinking about playing Ohio State again. So that's it. CJ, didn't you? I think you reported something on that, right? Like, quoted a source to him, like he's got his mind on making an NFL roster. He's not thinking about college football.
Yeah, the Burks, his camp, his agent, Ethan himself, all completely dead set on making that the NFL roster with the Ravens. And look, he's making some noise right now. We'll see. As an undrafted free agent, I mean, he's sticking around.
Yeah. This is kind of the last I'll mention it, and I'm with you, CJ. Like, I hate that this is even like we're almost 2 weeks out from actual football. Like, I don't want to be talking about this anymore. Sailor Joe says, by the way, I won't expect Matt to chop that up, and CJ's had enough like memes and stuff. It's time for some of us to get one, but I digress. Says Texas just doesn't want the nonsense, but are we being biased since we took Cole Hudson back? That's where it's a little bit different. If it's a guy going to back to his original school, it is what it is. Like, I don't like it. And I said this when the Cole Hudson thing popped up. In the interest of full disclosure, like, I don't like the precedent this sets. But if it's a guy just going back to the place that he was, and it's not just random free agency, that helps me stomach it a little bit more. So, Marcus, that was kind of your point earlier. It is what it is at this point, and okay, well, I'll live with that.
And again, we're talking about a very, very small percentage of people and a very specific set of circumstances. Hudson was already kind of back in the Austin area. He was working on his MBA. Like, certain things just kind of lined up to where, whether we like it or not, it's at least one that you could kind of stand to reason, because it's more along the lines of 5 for 5 and all the things. We're talking about pulling guys that potentially are getting cut next week, right? Which then puts you, I mean, let's say it's, I don't know, today's the 19th. We're talking August 26th, 7, 8 days, 9 days, 10 days away from the first game. And they're going to be coming from NFL camp now to a university. I'm not a fan of it. I don't see where it makes a ton of sense. And again, I don't really see a person that would fit the Texas mold for us to be spending as much time as we are on this.
Absolutely. All right. So we got some super chats. So let's get to the super chats. Hopefully Paxton that satisfied the need to get our take on the NFL situation with the ruling that came down. Richard has a super chat. Richard, thank you for the super chat. Said, we are all wishing for a freaking awesome offensive line. Absolutely, 100%. How good is Connor Robertson? Understand Gooseby is on rest with Gooseby in the lineup. How good is the O-line? It's I guess it's what are you comparing it to? Like, if you're comparing it to other SEC offensive lines, could it be like, I think best case scenario, like if you can say this line's in the top half of offensive lines in the SEC, then that's a significant step up from where they were last year. I'll let you guys discuss that, CJ, Marcus, if you guys have any opinions on that. How good is Connor Robertson? I feel like a lot of times, like the center gets a bad rap. Like there's a lot of stuff that gets blamed on the center that isn't necessarily the center's fault. And it doesn't matter who the center is at Texas. Like basically any center at Texas in the last 25 years, not named Lyle Sinline, has, I think, just at times just gotten unnecessarily crapped on. Like Jason Glenn, Chris Hall, Dom Espinosa, like go on down the line. Like the center seems to be the whipping boy for a lot of people when things go wrong with the offensive line. I just think Connor Robertson's a guy that's been around a long time, played a lot of good football, and the guys next to him, you should be better at both guard spots than you were last year. So I think a byproduct of that is going to be Connor Robertson having a better year.
Yeah, look, I'm excited for Connor going into really his first year being the guy, right? It's a different mentality. I went to several Westlake games when he was there, and that was a team. I'll tell a quick story. Westlake played Vandegrift at DKR one year. Dabo Swinney had flown in to watch Cade Klubnik. You know, I think there were 4 special teams touchdowns alone from Westlake. The score was like 70-10 or something. It was an ass whooping. But I had never seen a player maintain a level of intensity in a blowout of that fashion in any game that I've covered for a recruit or just gone to attend than Connor Robertson in that game at DKR. I mean, it was on 10 the entire game, in which, again, it was – I mean, there should have been a running clock midway through the first quarter. It was that type of a butt whooping. I'm excited for him in the sense that I think you'll finally – and Texas fans will finally get an idea of who he is as a competitor. Right, because he was a step-in, right, a replacement a year ago. Couldn't really carve out his own role or do it the way that he wanted. He just had to maintain the line of what could get us to the next snap without destroying the offense, right? Mm-hmm. This year, I think you'll see a step. And so what will that mean for the offense? Jeff, I do 100% agree with you. I think it's going to be an improvement from a year ago. I think the pieces around him are going to be better. I think this offense and pass protection with a healthy Trevor Gooseby is going to be very good. Will it be one of the best in the country? I need to see it. Got to see it. But I think pass protection with the tackles, with Brandon Baker moving in, I think you're in for a really strong pass protection unit this year.
Marcus, I'm kind of with the O line and the penalty situation on the same level. Like if you're just average, then you're miles ahead of where you were last year. If you just get the average, just middle of the road.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think it's one of those deals where like they were so bad last year at that, you know, just kind of taking that next step and shoring a lot of that up is going to go a really long ways. Also to the point of the question, like I think part of good also factors into how fast can you play because you're not having to think. Right. And so this is another guy that has experience. It's someone that Arch is accustomed to. He's going to be able to, you know, really he's the captain of the offense in the sense that he's the one that's going to be setting the protections. And that's somebody that is not having to do that for the first time. And so for me, I think that's going to be kind of one of those hidden values, if you will, where he gets an opportunity to go out there and really help to speed up the process of the offensive line gelling and making sure that everybody is fully connected because, you know, he and Arch almost have to have a symbiotic relationship of sorts where they kind of have this, you know, connection that, you know, has to permeate through the rest of the offensive line. So I think he'll continue to be able to take that step that CJ is talking about, if not for anything but his experience and, you know, time that he's had in the program.
Yeah, I like Dan Ham's point too. I did think Connor Robertson played well when he came in for Jake Majors early in the OU game as a freshman. I thought he played about as well as you could have hoped for an inexperienced center in that game to play. Marcus, you know, like the OU game, no matter where Texas goes on the road or whatever, like the OU game is a different beast than any other game you play during the regular season.
Yeah, man. And to like your point, I mean, to be able to step in there and perform the way you do, I mean, there's guys, you know, that I've seen, you know, when you walk out are kind of like a bit starstruck as much as you try to prepare them for it. or awestruck rather. As much as you try to prepare them for it, nothing really does until you step in. So to then be kind of thrust into a situation that you weren't even expecting before the season began. No, he certainly performed admirably.
That's usually when the beat downs happen, Marcus, on one side or the other. Like 49-0, like you can kind of see some of the OU guys looking around. I'm like, oh, this is like one big Bijan run away from getting ugly real quick. And I didn't know that it was going to be like a fake running back jump pass that swung that thing, but it was thing was bound to get out of control. Justin Yarbrough with another super chat. Thank you, Justin, for the super chat. Said, Marcus, are we going to get Candyman on the show? Great guy, great coach.
Oh, yeah, man. Jermaine Anderson. That's my man. So I don't know if you've ever heard this story, Jeff, and great question, Justin. We called Jermaine Candyman because he always had candy with him. Like he literally he would have it, walking around the facility. If we went out somewhere, he had candy on him. And he would just hand it to you. If you wanted some candy, you always knew he had some. So we called him Candyman. I'll put some effort to that. I've been having some luck with getting some guys on here as of late. So I'll see what old Jermaine's up to.
Jermaine, like a Werther's, like hard candy, or like Skittles, Starburst. Like, what are we talking about?
Man, he had everything. He would have sometimes he'd have Jolly Ranchers. He would have the blow pops. He would have whatever, Starburst. Like he had all kinds of stuff. And I don't know if he kept them in his dorm, if he had them in like the meeting room or something, his locker, but he always had candy on him.
All right, so we'll Marcus has done a great job getting us guests, so we'll see how that plays out as we sit here today, 17 days away from kickoff, Texas State, that 2026 season opener. All right, asking to do it for the Wednesday night live stream. CJ, Marcus, thank you guys for the time, the knowledge, the intel, the expertise as always. Hey, big thank you to CJ tonight for pulling double duty, not just
absolutely
as one of the hosts, but running everything behind the scenes. So big shout out to
well
CJ
done,
for
sir.
his efforts tonight. Hey, if you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, now is the time to get over to the site and check out everything we've got going on over there. New subscribers, we got a limited time offer for you to take advantage of. $3 for your first 3 months of access. That's all it'll take for you to get in the door over to ontexasfootball.com. If it's happening on the 40 acres behind the burnt orange curtain, we are talking about it over to ontexasfootball.com. And again, new members, $3 for your first 3 months of access over to ontexasfootball.com. Get over to the site and take advantage right now. Hey, make sure that you like this video. Hit that like button before we're done here. Make sure that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel, and make sure you've got your notifications set. That way, anytime we go live or drop a new video, you're not going to miss any of our Longhorn coverage or our breaking news. Sarah O, thank you for that. CB, thank you. Big milestone we hit here at On Texas Football today, crossing that 300,000 subscriber threshold. So this is 1,000% on you, the listener, and the viewer for making that happen. So thank you guys so much. Without you, there is no us. So thank you for your love and support and really waving that flag for On Texas Football. Much appreciated. 300,000 is a really big deal, but hey, there's more good to come at On Texas Football. So we will keep chugging along, and thank you guys so much for the support. Hey, thank you guys so much tonight for the questions. The chat was lively. Thank you for the super chats. If you had something that we didn't get to, you can direct the guys bright and early tomorrow morning on Coffee and Football. So till then, and by the way, for live streaming, Marcus and I are done for the week in terms of what's scheduled. CJ will be back tomorrow night with the Winning Drive crew. That's CJ, lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, and the coach Bob Shipley. Make sure you keep Coach Shipley in line, CJ. It's always got the potential to be wheels off with Coach, but we love Coach. Just gotta make sure he's 2 and 10. Just keep it steady. All right, that's gonna do it for us, for CJ, for Marcus, for the entire On Texas Football staff. I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until next time, welcome.
For Craig.
#4.